Good morning, everyone. My name is Sylvia Moramo Chabo. I am the founder of Andy Speaks for Special Needs Persons and currently running Miss Africa Elite. And I champion for inclusion of persons with neurodevelopmental disabilities. And today I shall be representing the entire spectrum of disabilities and the challenges that women go through on this Menstrual Hygiene Day. And thank you all for being here and for being part of this. And thank you to PeriodPride for organizing this as we intend to keep our girls in school and ensure that they too are not left behind, even continue with their schooling and everything else. And on this online chat, you can ask questions after, but then let's just dive into different areas that we have. So, disability, we have people with invisible disabilities, and we have those with physical disabilities. That's what most people actually are used to. So, today we will be visiting and looking deeper into all these areas. According to menstrual hygiene and education. So, if we talk about education being for everybody and as our desire, and you look at the persons with disabilities, you will find that when it comes to education, they've definitely been left out, even as we continue with the advocacy. And let's, for example, look at the persons with neurodevelopmental disabilities, that is the neurodiverse, and those with intellectual challenges. So we're speaking about people with autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and rare diseases that are girls and women, but then normally you find they need a lot of support to take care of themselves. And what happens when it comes to periods coming and education? You will find that they learn differently, meaning when even education for menstrual hygiene will have to be tweaked so that they are included. They learn using visuals and music and stuff like that, and it takes longer for them to get to understand. Considering intellectual challenges, it will require specialized kits to explain exactly what is going on. You can imagine just potty training. We have children who are 10 and above and are still on diapers. So add the complication of their menstrual periods coming, and a parent is not prepared, they're not educated, no one has ever prepared them for this. Maybe it's the first girl, and the difference in the conversation just spins it out of control for a parent on top of everything else that they have to do. And it takes a very big group to take care of this child. That means we have therapists, we have the teachers in school, and we have the parents, and now the support of like nannies. So all these people have to be included and educated on menstrual hygiene for this special person. When we're looking at the blind and the deaf, then we're trying to explain something they cannot see, maybe they can feel. So we need to consider that for the blind. And then for the deaf, you'll need a lot of pictorials and stuff like that to elaborate what is going to come and how they should handle it. So there is a lot of different type of education that is required for the special needs fraternity, and that is persons with different disabilities. So I believe that this should be included in their specialized syllabus, because you can imagine for those who are blind, that requires braille, and with all the different types of products, how do they get to know which product is used how? So that means their classes for menstrual hygiene have to be very, very practical and use tactile skills to actually learn about it. That takes us now to the infrastructure. Let's just start with the products. The products that we have for care means that we have variety. There is choice. Everyone else has a choice. But do people with disabilities actually have a choice? Considering now a person with intellectual or a neurodiverse person will require the caregivers to decide what product suits them, because it is the caregiver who's going to be keeping tabs on the dates of their menstrual cycle. They're the ones who are going to be changing their sanitary towels and explain to them what is going on with them every time. And for the neurodiverse, you need to tell them in advance. so that they are ready for the change, because they do not work too well with change, because you will find when things change they get really disoriented. Not all of them, because some, for a spectrum like autism, you will find that there is different, all of the autistic persons are different in their own way, and hence there is a lot of variation when it comes to that. So even that stability of putting the sanitary towel on a intellectually challenged person and expecting them to stay on with it, that's a different challenge. When we look at the blind, there is no sanitary towel that actually comes with instructions, even the basic expiry date that is in braille. So you can imagine when they go to do the purchasing, and then they cannot even tell the difference because they can't see. So they will be dependent on support. And for the ladies using crutches, have you ever imagined how the ones who have the disability where one leg is shorter than the other, and that brings challenges in their mobility, and meaning that now when they're moving, they have to be very cautious. Are the products is that factored in the product? So that's some of the things that when we're looking at product manufacturers to consider when they're looking at pWDs. Let's come to the in the section of infrastructure, the architecture. This involves now our environment, the buildings. When we're talking about the entry, the size of our toilets and amenities are usually very small. Not every building actually has a toilet for persons with disabilities. This includes the blind. It includes those on crutches. It includes those on wheelchairs. So imagine a wheelchair user going to a very tiny toilet, and she needs to change her sanitary pad. So that is a challenge. In the same scope and in the same breath, let's look at a child with cerebral palsy, a youth with cerebral palsy in this case, who needs change. That means they need to be supported. All right. So that means there has to be a caregiver going in with the wheelchair and the person to help them change. They need to lift them up and all this. So you can imagine the amount of space that is required, which forces people to do it out in public, which also the dignity of the girl is also put on the spotlight. So that comes to the amenities. So we need to have the government consider that, so that we have that even in schools, for special schools and stuff like that, and and offer education to our architects so that they consider all this when we're looking at how we're going to have proper inclusion and international designs for this persons with disabilities. Then we go to stigma. Generally, we all know that there is stigma by default when it comes to persons with disabilities. That is something that has been there, especially in our African culture, because we consider them as less of human beings, for lack of a better word, or just let's say less, which is not. Not many people actually remember that persons with disabilities also do have the menstrual cycle. Disability does not take it away. So it is part of them. They go through the same things that we do go through. So you can imagine the stigma that the caregivers have to go through, and even the people themselves. And their self-esteem gets what do you call it? They get issues with self-esteem because of the already existing stigma. So what about when they're on their misses? That like doubles. We find that single parents, most of the, like I'll talk with the neurodiverse community and those with intellectual challenges, you find that the fathers leave, so you have a single parent who's burdened with taking care of this child and everything else, and they still have to handle the menstrual hygiene for them, and it is quite a daunting task. So for as a community, we'd encourage people to embrace those different, the people with their differences, because we're never the same, we're all different, and we need to appreciate that. Then because of their disability, we have, like in the neurodiverse, we have those who cannot talk, and those maybe who have not had the chance and exposure to learn sign language. So you find that sexual predators find them as an easy target, because if you take advantage of a girl who cannot talk, that means she cannot report you and you can get away with it. So that's the other thing that we need to always have in mind and consider, and also just support them, especially during their cycle, because you see, the minute that's general public realize that okay, she's she has her menses, that means she's ready for she's able to conceive and all that. So it's a risk, although it is nature, but then that's one of the things that goes through. So then we'd also like to urge the policymakers and those who work and the people who do designs for menstrual products to always include at least a person with disability or someone who is educated in that space, so that they can be able to guide you and advise on your design and when you're looking at the solution, so that it is inclusive. But most of all, let's not forget that they too have their menstrual uh, cycle. We come to access in terms of sanitary products. Affordability is one of the challenges. Depending, most of those, let's say in the sub-Saharan in the sub-Saharan, depend on the programs and donations that come to schools and give donations for our children and that is the youth and women. So you can imagine when that is taken away, especially like a time like this where we have the pandemic and our schools are closed. So you will find that supply goes away. And those marginalized areas also depend on that support. And right now, with limited movement, they don't have that. When it comes to special needs parents, I'll now be categorical in the neurodiverse community, which is the one that I focus on mostly. You find that special needs parents have a lot of needs on top of everything else, because you have to live the normal life. Your child requires, you'll find that they might require diapers for longer. Have you ever imagined a youth who is still on their diapers and gets their menses? So how do you balance that? Like, they're having the sanitary towels, yet they cannot go to the toilet by themselves, so they have to wear the diapers. So it's a bit complicated. And then you find the parent has to think about medication for those who depend on either supplements for their well-being, or anticonvulsants for those who are epileptic and have seizure convulsions, and then there is the regular food and or etc. Then you add on top of that the thought that they have to think about purchasing sanitary towels for their girls and youth. So that's why we're saying access to the products needs to be free. It needs to be something that people can access without having to fight so much for it, and taxes scrapped. Just basically, let's just get it for free, right? And then we have the men. Like, we have an example. We have a caregiver, single father with a special needs girl. What happens when that girl gets to puberty and it's a girl with a disability? How is it going to handle that? And more so for the neurodiverse and those with intellectual challenges. So you can imagine you're a father, you have to take care of your special needs girl who's in her puberty, because there is no support. Maybe you're not surrounded with females around, and you can imagine how complex a situation that is. And of course, you can't let them be with everyone else, because also, like we said earlier, they become sexual predators, prey on those who are nonverbal. So the challenges surrounding persons with disability are quite immense. And that's why we're saying their stripes could be different, but all our hearts beat the same. We all bleed the same. Just disability is not in an inability, and neither does it change anything when it comes to when it having your period. They still get it. And like I always want to campaign, I say, if we have condoms for free, why not have sanitary wear or sanitary products for free? I've been your presenter, Sylvia Moramo Chabo, from Andy Speaks for Special Needs Persons. Thank you for your time.